Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Warhammer Total War online commentary. In this particular game, I will be playing Clan Angren, so as more specifically the Dwarfs, but man, I am so darn excited for these guys. I've been having a lot of fun, and personally, I think the best addition to this roster against the Greenskins are these Ethereal Lords. Something to consider, guys. They do have a lower base HP, so against magical damage, they are going to die fairly quickly, but against physical units, in which that pretty much compromises all of the Greenskin roster that is very popular. I mean, none of these units, if you look across them, do magic damage, and most of the buffs with the Greenskin Dewa, the magic abilities, Brain Busta and those other abilities, people usually do not bring those. So against the Greenskins, you're going to essentially get an 80% damage reduction on these guys just in all circumstances. So very, very strong, and just wanted to go through that before we get started. But as far as my army goes, I do have a front line of Longbeards, I think, and Dwarf Warriors kind of in the mix. So I've been playing a lot of games versus the Greenskins as the Dwarves, and it's been really tough. The Nasty Skulkers, the Squigs, all those units are just so cost effective against the Dwarves. And if you go like with a really wide formation, it's very easily for these Skulkers to kind of isolate units and pick them off and just overwhelm you. So I developed a bit of a tighter formation here, which I've had some success with. But undoubtedly, the key to success with this build is the Ethereal Lords, and then of course Belegar Ironhammer with his Unbreakable trait at the end of the battle. It's just absolutely crucial. So I have the two Longbeards here. I have a group of Quarrelers, and then I also have Ulthar's Raiders, the Rangers with great weapons. They have that nice armor-piercing missile with 45 missile damage. So against the Arachnarok Queen, who's been very, very popular, they're going to do great damage with their ranged attacks with that armor-piercing. And they do have decent melee stats, so when she does summon her Spiderlings in there, they do a really good job fighting them, actually. So huge fan of those guys. I also have the Goblobber Grudge Thrower, which is doing great. You can see it actually hit these Squigs over here and put them down to like 20 leadership, and they were actually down to like 10 at one point. So the leadership hit, when these guys essentially hit things with the Screaming Goblins, it lowers their leadership pretty quickly, which is very good against low-tier Greenskin troops. So I really like bringing one of these in this matchup as well. So Dwarf Warriors here, Dwarf Warriors and Longbeards kind of mixed in. And then, of course, the Dragonback Slayers. These guys are so cool. They have anti-large, and they also do have a charge resistance, if I'm not mistaken, guys. So, again, huge fan of these guys, and that's something that the Slayers have been needing for a while. Even though it doesn't say it in the tooltip, they just rounded a space, they do have charge resist. So, and also, Belegar in this matchup is very, very strong. He has, of course, I don't know, I think the Rune Lord may be slightly more competitive, but depending on your build, Belegar can actually be better, in my opinion. But there's give and takes. It really depends on how you want to play. Belegar is really good. He has a Revenge Incarnate, which gives him 58 melee attack as well as substantial armor-piercing damage, and it makes him unbreakable. So at the end of the battle, when things are really close, there's just hordes of goblins, and all you have is a few lords. It's really good to use that and just kind of make that last stand. He also can provide expert melee defense to all your troops. So when those Squigs and really aggressive units, because Dwarves are always going to get run over by Cav, or not run over, but charged. So it's pretty good to give all your units, even like your guys with great weapons, you can give them expert charge defense, which is really good. And also the Hammer of Angren, which gives him pretty good combat stats as well. So huge fan of this guy so far. I actually complained a little bit when I first saw him. I was like, oh, Revenge Incarnate's kind of underwhelming. But when I saw the synergy it had with these guys, and these lords are unbreakable guys, just something to consider, it ended up being pretty good. So my opponent, in the spirit of the new DLC, has a bunch of Squigs over here. He has Durkit Squigs, the Night Goblin Squig Hoppers, which are poison attack, scaly skinned, very, very cool unit. He also has a Squig Herd here, which do have armor piercing. The Arachnarok Queen, who is just an absolute terror. The fact that she can summon Spiderlings in your missile units is just really hard to deal with. And then, of course, he has a bunch of Night Goblins over here. He has a Skarsnik with his pet Squig, and then he has some Nasty Skulkers here and a Goblin Big Boss here. So, man, this guy is so freaking cool. He's has armor piercing, very good against the Dwarves, anti-large, melee expert. So against Belegar, it's a pretty good matchup. He does poison him, but I think Belegar actually wins in a straight up 1x1, but he 1v1. But he has a lot of other tools at his disposal as well. So very, very good lord. Skarsnik's going to be a lot of fun. Then, of course, he has another contingent, so he's just going to sandwich me here. I'm just like this desperate dwarven last stand here. So my apologies for the long introduction. There's a lot of new content, so I wanted to share it with you guys. But right now, the goblin, the grudge thrower with the goblobber, I got to remember all these names, is actually shooting at this Arachnarok spider, throwing some goblins its way, and it's doing pretty darn good. And it's so funny seeing these guys. Let's see if we can get a close up on this while they're flying. Yeah, you can actually see it's like strapped to that freaking rock, and it's just going in. So it's pretty great, and it's making some good contact, and it actually hits pretty hard. And look at the leadership, guys. This Arachnarok spider is now down to 34 leadership. which is substantially lower than where it started. So I actually really like that for focusing. There's a lot of like powerful units on the Greenskin roster as well as other factions that have somewhat low leadership. So having that's going to be pretty good, I think. So I'm really excited about that. But he is definitely going to envelop me here. You can see he's got his contingent over there coming in. He's got his main group here coming in. But at this moment, I actually can't really see a lot of them, interestingly enough. I just see the Spider as well as I think I see Skarsnik. I don't think he has stock. No, he does not. So yeah, I don't see a lot of his troops. I don't really know what to expect. So I just essentially set up a box formation. I angle this Quarreler so that I can shoot here and here. And then, of course, I use the Ethereal Lords, who are very good against the Greenskins in this matchup. It takes literally an eternity to kill these guys for the Greenskins, unless they bring things that aren't really commonly brought. So, but look at the damage the Goblobber is doing to that Arachnarok Queen, which is very, very important because that's absolutely one of the the banes of my forces here. It's gonna be really, really tough to take that out. So still working on it. Its leadership is pretty low, so I'm hoping it'll crumble fairly quickly once it does come in. But I do see the Squigs coming over here, so I reposition my Quarrelers here. I get these Slayers in the back with their Halkenhoff Stonebeard. This guy's so freaking cool, and the way they sound too with that echo in their voice, it is just so awesome. Man, I'm just all fanboying it up about the Dwarves right now. But BELEGAR'S here. He's going to meet these guys in the front line, and a lot of their units are now visible, so I kind of have more of an understanding of what's going on. So I actually send King Loon Ironhammer in, and he's going to do a great job tying this guy down, and the huge damage that this Arachnarok Spider does will be largely negated by the fact that he is ethereal. So I was really counting on that. And you can also see my Raiders throwing their battle axes over here, and it's going to do pretty good damage. You see it chunked it for about 10% of his HP, and then the Grudge Thrower is continuing to throw as well. So very, very good situation there. BELEGAR in the front line is going to come in and just lay the smack down on these Gobbos here. He definitely hits like a truck. One of the downsides is he doesn't have traditional armor piercing, but in this particular meta right now, Goblins are so popular that he doesn't really need armor piercing. And he does a pretty good job of beating down the Goblin Lords as well. So, and having among these like Dwarf Warriors and relatively low tier Longbeards aren't low tier, but he does use the Mighty Oathstone as well to give them that melee defense. So unfortunately for me, the Squigs are coming in the back line, and these Slayers, I suppose they're a good choice for dealing with them. And also I do have the Ethereal Lord here who's going to help out, but they get surrounded pretty quickly. But thankfully these Slayers are they're not going to rout or get afraid, and they do hit really hard. But they are poisoned also, so my opponent using the Night Goblins very effectively. And to be honest, I just don't have enough troops to deal with this. I mean, it's just like hordes upon hordes of goblins here. But thankfully, this Arachnarok Spider is starting to go down, and I do have the Ulthuar's Raiders. If you guys take a look, I did bring the Great Weapons. Well, they have Great Weapons, but unfortunately, you're not going to... I haven't seen any Black Orcs in like 4 or 5 games, so I keep thinking like my old way of thinking that you really need that, but you actually, it doesn't seem to be as popular, at least in this meta right now. But thankfully, you can see the troops over here, the Dwarf Warriors and the Ethereal Lord, who causes terror, and I cannot speak to how good that is, because Goblins are very, very weak to that. So having that having the ability to be able to cause terror is so strong. So BELEGAR and the boys over here are kind of holding off some of these Night Goblins, doing a pretty darn good job. You can see them getting in there. Man, so some of these new units look so freaking cool. Granted, I mean, these aren't the new ones, but these are the Regiments of Renown, and I believe these ones are unbreakable, the Regiment of Renown Goblins here, the Night Goblins, so very, very cool. So we're continuing to fight. BELEGAR'S in here. He's going fisticuffs with Skarsnik here, and Skarsnik is definitely in a bad place. All his lads routed off and left him to the dogs, because the Throny Ironbrow actually does cause terror as well, so having that on your Runesmith is very good. So Skarsnik, you can see he takes a beating, so him and his Squig are peacing out. They've had enough fun, so they're gonna run. And also these Ulthuar's Raiders are throwing their battle axes, providing good variance, and they can get in there and do pretty good in melee with 30 weapon strength and 40 melee attack, but I think that's with the buffs that are nearby. But again, still very, very viable. On that same coin, I am losing a lot of troops. If we do an overhead view, it looks really good now, but I don't have that much left. I have a few guys here, but he has so many of these nasty Skulkers and Night Goblins and different kind of units coming back and forth. But one thing I do have going for me is the fact that Skarsnik is kind of chilling over here. Him and his pet are taking a rest, but they're coming back in, unfortunately. So Skarsnik's definitely a force to be reckoned with. But one thing is, if you do have like a ton of Night Goblins, they can route very easily to the terror of these Ethereal Lords, and kind of leave Skarsnik to the dogs. So looks like he is shooting a magic missile effect here, which would have been good to use on the Ethereal units. It looks like it may have just missed, but his Spider does come back in. But back here, the Squigs, they've done a great job cleaning up most of my Dwarves and Slayers. I don't really have much left, to be honest. And you can see the Squigs are just running rampant among my my Rangers here. I keep thinking they're Rangers, but well, I guess they are Rangers with great weapons, but they are the Regiment of Renown. And all these Night Goblins are just so cost effective against these troops. Thankfully, these guys were able to generate their value dealing with the Arachnarok Queen. But, at the same time, these Goblins are just lowering their stats so much, and a lot of my troops are starting to get the beat down. So what I decided to do is start to consolidate. So I kind of just pull everything over here where, Belegar is, and you can see Belegar's just laying the smackdown on Skarsnik and making sure he's out of the battle. And also Skarsnik is subject to terror as well. He's not immune to psychology, so that's definitely very, very tough, and you can see he should be out for the battle, and I believe he actually shatters shortly. So also, some of these Quarrelers are still alive. I kind of have them mixed in here in Ulthuar's Raiders, and they're shooting at that Arachnarok Spider, just trying to keep it off the battlefield. The Queen is definitely a force to be reckoned with, so anytime you can focus her down, well, if she was like one of the last units left, it would be very hard to win, so you need to start working on the Queen early. But Belegar's coming in here. He's going to lay the smackdown and just trying to finish off the last of these Gobos, and yeah, it's really tough. The poison with the armor-piercing Skulkers, and it's pretty cool that the Goblins actually have a regiment of renowned Night Goblins that are unbreakable now, because what that allows you to do is constantly have poison on a target of your choosing. Because one of the issues, not issues, but Night Goblins, yeah, they do cause poison, but they're going to rout off pretty quickly most of the time, so the poison isn't going to give you that sustained value. But now that you have this unbreakable unit, it will for sure. So yeah, you can see there's just hordes of Goblins left, and if we look at the Dwarf forces, there's not much. There's some Quarrelers here who are shaken. Over here I have some Longbeards left, but the big thing I got going for me is Halkenhoff Stonebeard and King Lune Ironhammer. So it's going to be very tough for my opponent to kill them. He doesn't really have any magic damage, and you can see that, what's his name? Skarsnik is actually wavering and getting ready to run off the battlefield, and actually I believe the Goblobber is still online. Yeah, it's still shooting. Yeah, I know it had a few people manning it like there at the end, and it's still continuing to shoot over here, but hopefully it can keep Skarsnik off the battlefield with its leadership hit. I did assign some Longbeards to kind of protect it and hold it down so it could continue to shoot. And at the same time, I believe I do have, yeah, the Ethereal Lords are still all alive over here. And what's great about them, guys, is they can all carry potions with the exception of the Runesmith. So it's going to take an eternity to get through these guys' health. But also, even if they do get them low, I have a potion which will essentially be so cost effective considering how low their HP is. It's gonna bring them up quite a bit. So Belegar's in here, still kind of laying the smackdown on some Goblins. And you can see that with those one swing, he kind of cleaves a whole crowd of them. And same with these guys. They're heroic units at their core. I mean, this guy has 385 weapon strength. This guy has a little bit lower weapon strength. I think one of them is more of an offensive lord, an offensive Thane, and one of them has better defensive stats. But they both deal magic damage, which I'm actually really excited to try them out in the Vampire Counts matchup, where ethereal units may be popular. It would actually be pretty funny in Dwarf Mirrors as well to have them fight each other with that magic damage. So I'm using the Rune of Wrath and Rune with the Throny Ironbrow and doing a pretty good job, but he still has hordes of stuff. But you can see the Grudge Thrower before it gets shut down by these Warlords boys, these Night Goblins who do have armor centering, so another great choice against the Dwarves. They do shut it down, but not before it shatters Skarsnik. So that leadership hit was enough to send him running off the battlefield. So now a lot of these Night Goblins and other troops, they're actually still, still fighting surprisingly, even though their lords fled. But I don't have much of anything left. I literally only have the 3 Ethereal Lords, and I believe Belegar's in there as well. So right now they're just kind of getting there, getting down and dirty, crushing some Goblins. But that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, that's all I got. But like I was telling you guys, against the Greenskins who are using these Goblin hordes, one of the best strategies I've found so far in my limited, completely anecdotal experience is the last stand. So you're inevitably probably going to lose a lot of stuff, but having these troops who are just extremely hard to finish off with low tier troops like Belegar and these King Lune Ironhammer and Halkenhoff Stonebeard, they're just going to hold it down. And honestly, the fact that they cause terror and their lord is gone, these Goblins are done for. They're not going to be able to stand and fight. So very, very happy about these new units for the Dwarves, and I cannot wait to try them against other factions. One of the issues I've been having so far in multiplayer is everyone's just right now is just playing the 2 factions. So I'll try to bring some varied matchups to you guys, but literally every single game I've played has been Goblins or Greenskins. Not Goblins, excuse me. The Greenskins or the Dwarves, which I don't blame people. I would want to do the same thing, but just look at the route on those Goblins from these units here. It is insane. That's literally like, let's see how many troops it is. I don't think I can see because there's only 27 still fighting, but yeah, that's several hundred troops, as well as Skarsnik kind of running for the hills. But he does have his unbreakable unit here, so the coin is finally on the other hand with the unbreakable troops being on the Goblin side, having to finish them off, as all my Slayers did indeed die. So the Squigs were definitely monstrous, but just keeping that like tight formation of those terror-causing units, it was kind of hard to perceive it just from the limited stuff I showed you guys, but there were literally like chain terrified Goblin groups that were just running and coming back and running and coming back, so they weren't quite as effective. But yeah, these lords just absolute MVPs, and look at the kills on Belegar. He definitely settled some grudges and definitely deserves to reclaim his homeland. And the Dwarves and Longbeards, again, pretty good in this matchup, but the nasty Skulkers in conjunction with the poison really lowered their stats. The Slayers did okay, but the Squigs just kind of run them down and can really charge through them, and especially when you mix them in with fodder units, because Slayers aren't very good against fodder. It's actually probably the worst circumstance you could have them in. I was hoping to get them on the Spider, but there's absolutely no way with all those Goblins there. So very well played there on my opponent's part. with the Raiders here, Ulthar's Raiders. I really like them. I think they're very cool. I love that they have that heavy-hitting armor-piercing missile. And one of the issues against the traditional Greenskin armies even is the Black Orcs. And I think these guys will be a useful tool against Black Orcs. Not only can they have armor-piercing kind of with a decent arc on their throw, but they can also get in there and bang with their great weapons. So very excited about trying them. And then, of course, I do like the Goblobber. Did a great job, and the leadership hit is quite fun. So again, good game to my opponent, Karamawi. Look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and I hope you guys enjoyed the last stand of the Ancestor Gods. So take care, guys, and have an excellent night.